Welcome or welcome back. It's your curious European friend here, and today we're going to be looking into some unwritten rules that Australians seem to follow, at least according to this guy here. Or, yeah, they seem to follow it without realizing, he says. So, I'm really curious what this is going to be about. I have no idea, so let's just get into it.
Now, in Australia, there is literally a list of unwritten rules that Aussies seem to follow. And it's definitely something that I picked up on here in Australia after moving here from the UK. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's video as we go into 7 unwritten rules that Australian people follow, sometimes without even realizing. Before we get into it though, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to the channel. And yeah, let's get into it. So, rule number 1 is everyone acts casual even when it's not a time to be acting casual. In the UK, I feel like we exaggerate a lot of problems a lot, whereas in Australia, it could be a massive issue, but it gets played down so much by Aussies. Now, I thought this was a bit of a stereotype, but it's actually true. There could be like a massive event, and rather than going, oh my god, that's crazy, Aussies would just be like, that's not too good, mate. Do you know what I mean? Just the most casual reactions to crazy things. Obviously, this isn't all Aussies, and it is a little bit of a stereotype, but it's one thing I have noticed here in Australia is how casually Aussies react to things, and they definitely don't exaggerate about issues or big kind of events that happen. I've mentioned it before to do with the weather. If there was a record-breaking weather event in Australia, it would literally be news for about a day and then everyone would move on. If there's a major weather event in the UK, that thing is all over the news, all over social media, and everyone is overreacting. That's not the case in Australia. People do not overreact to things much.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm trying to get to a point like that where you just like, okay, just take it easy. Honestly, sometimes I'm like, why are we stressing so much? Or at least if I speak for myself, I'm like, okay, this doesn't actually do anything. Let me just chill down a little bit. And I don't know. I feel like it might be more productive in a way if you're not like overthinking, over stressing to come up with better solutions. I don't know.
Number 2 is do not act like you're special. Now, this is something that I've definitely noticed in Australia, and judging by my comments and stuff on YouTube, a lot of Aussies have this mindset that, you know, fair enough if you're doing well for yourself, but if you brag about it or you are a bit big-headed, that's definitely looked down upon in Australia. I definitely think it's not as bad as the UK, where there is a massive hate culture towards anyone that's successful, anyone that does well. People are so jealous in the UK. In Australia, I think it's less of like a jealousy thing, but Aussies just don't like it if you brag or you think you're...
Yeah, that's kind of the same where I'm from. I'm from the Netherlands, if you didn't know. And I would say, yeah, it's kind of like how he describes it, how it is in Australia, where people are just like, yeah, don't brag too much, just kind of, you know, not like stay in the lane. Isn't there like isn't there a word for it in Australia? Like, or I don't know if that's a word in general, but I've heard of like, what does she call it? It was this Australian girl who I watch on YouTube, who called it tall poppy syndrome, I think. That's kind of the word for it, right? For this phenomenon.
Better than everyone else, which is understandable, to be honest. I think they call it tall poppy syndrome here in Australia. Basically, don't get too big for your boots, and if you don't, you're going to get on well with Aussies. If you go around big-headed thinking you're the then yeah, Aussies are going to get a bit pissed off. Understandable, to be fair. Point number 3 is you will have a favourite city in Australia and you will feel very passionately about that. This is another funny comparison that I've mentioned between the UK and Australia, and that is in Australia, everyone is so competitive about whose city's the best, and everyone has their favourite city and they feel very passionately about that. There's a lot of rivalries between cities, between Sydney and Melbourne. People will be very competitive and
I didn't know about that. That was a thing in Australia.
will have full-on debates or even arguments with you if you disagree with their choice of their favourite city. It's something all over Australia, and to be honest, it's a funny Aussie habit that I think I've actually picked up, because now I live in Australia and I've travelled around, I actually start to feel quite passionately about my favourite places as well. This stood out to me massively because it's not the case in the UK. No one's really proud or passionate about where they're from. In Australia, it's like an unwritten rule, and it's that you will have your favourite place or places, and you will be happy to debate anyone who disagrees. Point number 4 is when it rains, everyone hibernates. This is another unwritten rule here in Australia, and because the weather in Australia is generally very good in some places for like 7-8 months of the year, when it does get to that period where it's cold and it's wet, Aussies literally hibernate, and it makes sense. Again, comparing this to the UK where you're not even guaranteed a nice summer, so sometimes you just have to commit to what you're.
That's definitely the same in the Netherlands. Like you range like 200 something days of the year, so you can't wait for it to be like good weather, and you just have to get on with it basically, because like you said, it's not guaranteed you can have a nice summer. Sometimes it's just blah, and you just, yeah, that's just it. That's all you get.
Gonna do and go ahead with your plans regardless of the weather. In Australia, the weather is great for so much of the year, so why would they bother planning something when the weather's bad? Certain places that I've lived that are almost reliant on good weather, such as Perth and Sydney, the difference is crazy from summer to winter. They're almost ghost towns in the winter. It is almost like everyone hibernates. Whereas in the summer, they are completely different places, and it makes a lot of sense when you've got such nice weather for so much of the year. The next unwritten rule is to never complain about the weather here in Australia. This is not something Aussies do because they're just happy whatever the weather is. If it's scorching hot, 45 degrees, they're going to be like, oh yeah, it's a bit hot, but they're not going to complain. They're just going to get on with their day, appreciate the blue skies. You don't really hear it.
I guess that ties in with his number 1 that he stated, that you guys just don't really make a big fuss out about things.
When it rains, I feel like they're quite relieved to get a bit of rain and a bit of cold weather. Coming from the UK where all anyone does is complain about the weather, moving to Australia where it's almost an unwritten rule to not complain about the weather is quite nice, to be honest. Aussies just, no matter what the weather is, they're okay with it. In the UK, it's like you can never satisfy us, do you know what I mean? Point number 6 is work is not the priority and life is. In Australia, this is an unwritten rule because I feel like not that many people have work at the top of their priority list. Obviously some people do, but the amount of Aussies that just work very typical jobs that I've personally worked with, but yet they're just so satisfied with their life. You know, they've got what they need outside of work. They go to the beach before work. They live such a good life around work that work's not really that important to them. Again, I know I keep comparing to the UK, but you know, I've lived in the UK as well. So in the UK, people get so consumed by their jobs, and people who earn very good salaries are not happy people because they don't live a good life outside of work. They've become so attached to the salary. In Australia, I've met people who I'm guessing don't earn amazing wages, but they live such a good life outside of work. They've got the weather, they've got the activities, maybe they live by the beach. People in Australia prioritise living life above their job, which I love, to be honest. I think it's a bad habit that a lot of people have back in the UK, and it's getting so consumed by your job to the point where it's like, you're not even living life anymore. And point number 7 is to always say hi. This is something that's quite nice in Australia. There is a lot more small talk than there is in places like the UK. People, if you're on a walk or you're just out and about, Aussies will always say hi. Do you know what I mean? In the UK, it's not really the case so much. People might give you a little head nod or something, but it's another unwritten rule in Australia, and it's just people are very polite. They'll always give you a smile, always say hi when you're out and about, you're walking. I think that just comes from Australia's friendly culture, and it's definitely a good thing. So there is a list of unwritten rules that Aussies follow without even realizing sometimes. I will say this doesn't apply to every single Aussie. Obviously, there's some that don't say hi and do get consumed by their job. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on this one, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Now,
Yeah. Let's play it again. But yeah, this is a very interesting video to me because I didn't know about these things yet. Some make more, or did I expected more than others. Like in my head, it makes sense that with the picture I have of Australia, that you guys might be less inclined to complain about the weather and be dramatic about things and just be more chill. Yeah, I don't know. In my head, that fits what I think of, or what I assume of Australian. Again, yeah, like you said, it's not going to be like, it's a stereotype. And maybe not every person does it, but I guess like the general population maybe is more inclined to be like that. Yeah, I love, like, it seems like in general people in Australia are living quite a nice lifestyle with, yeah, just being able to go to the beach and having more of that work-life balance. Now, I don't know if you actually do, or if you just plan your days better, or yeah, I don't know. You just prioritize living your life more, I guess, than working. And I feel like that's really nice, because especially if you don't really get that passionate about your job, and then people try to strive for just more money, but then you're not actually happy doing what you do. And then outside of that, you're just so consumed by trying to get, like, to level up more. And then you come to a point where you're like, wait, what am I doing in my life? That's a really big generalization, but I don't know. I like what he said there. You guys seem to prioritize living your life to the fullest, and I appreciate that. Anyways, let me know if you have any more things that you think, oh, this is something that we do, or if you're not from Australia and you've been there, if you have any maybe, yeah, culture shocks or anything like that, let me know and I'll be happy to read them.